Sir?
Yes, Godden?
What words would you use to describe, I don't know, a frontier?
This is a strange request.
Humor me.
Oh, I don't know. Large, barren, unexplored, wild, sexy.
Stop right there. Wait, no, back up a second. What did you just say?
Wild, yes, wild.
Wilds!
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages,
With Monster Hunter Wilds releasing next year, and me about as spoiler-free as possible on the whole thing, my hype is growing and my knowledge, relative to yours, shrinking faster than a wool sweater in a hot dryer. That said, there are a lot of hopes that I have for Monster Hunter Wilds, a few expectations, and one of them actually is that there will be at least one new frontier monster in Wilds, meaning a monster originating from Monster Hunter Frontier, other than Espinas. Espinas opened the gate in Sunbreak, and a number of members from the original Frontier team have now actually joined the main series development team as well, and so it stands to reason that with Frontier itself having its servers shut down, more of these creatures from Frontier will be brought to the main series in order to sort of preserve them and keep them alive in their own way. Josh and I played through the majority of Frontier nearly a couple of years ago now, and it was a blast, honestly. So today I just want to put forth my own personal suggestions for the 10 Frontier monsters that I would love to see return in Monster Hunter Wilds.
Are you ready for Monster Hunter powered by Monster Hunter? See, for the 20th anniversary, MSI partnered with Monster Hunter to create the Rain Wyvern, a Novatech build of which there is only 35, and you don't need my words to see that it is gorgeous. So a huge thank you to MSI for sponsoring this video and for letting me have a good old play with some seriously cool Monster Hunter kit. This thing, as you can see, has serious power behind it, and the RTX 460 Ti Monster Hunter Edition at its heart is something quite special, as is the Monster Hunter edition of both the GC30 controller and the MAG 274 QRF QDE2 monitor. I mean, this together.
So tasty!
Can you not think of a better way to experience Wilds when it comes out next year, February 28th? And if your response to that is, hell yes! Well, the links to all of it can be found down below for your delectation. For now then, let's get on with the show.
First up then, this one isn't a specific monster, I guess, so I've already sort of lied, but the concept of origin species as a whole, as a monster variation. This is just a really awesome concept that the game used to create new versions of existing monsters in way more interesting ways than I think we have honestly ever had in the main series. Origin species as a thing are essentially the ancestral pre-evolutions of their base monster. They're generally bigger and usually more powerful, but in sort of similar capacities, almost like the equivalent of being a dinosaur compared to today's modern birds. You can track back how the things they have today relate to the things that they used to have and the actual power difference between them. There's an origin species for Gravios that honestly feels like you're fighting a walking water park, and I love that, and the origin species for Yamasukami, Yamakarai, is genuinely one of my all-time favorite monsters in the whole series. I love Yamasukami, but Yamakarai just takes the original fight and shows it who the boss is in an unbelievably amazing way, turning a fight that was otherwise very limited in its original actual creation and turning it into a proper monster fight with actual movement in an open zone. It powers it up in crazy ways, including the ability to form massive tornadoes, and he even has like a full-on phase swap where he switches seasons to autumn for the trees on his back, and he just has a full, beautiful, warm-colored mode too as a result. It's just really, really neat, and I love the concept of origin species being brought to other monsters in the future. This also counts sort of as my way of counting more Elder Dragons on the list, as you can do this with them, but generally speaking, especially for a non-expansion game, I will be keeping the list to mostly monsters below Elder Dragon tier. Second up then, and before you say that it is actually two monsters, I know, and this is the last time, I swear, only singular monsters after this point. Ray and Lolo Gugarf. Two monsters, but one fight that works together perfectly. They work together with each other, both by choice and by force, magnetic force. A blue badger-faced member of their sort of species and the red dog-faced member as well, each representing the sides of an actual magnet, of course, and they both attract and repel each other depending on what they want at will to create, in my opinion, the best duo fight in Monster Hunter. They are two separate bodies that move in a way that feels like they are one singular entity most of the time. They will try to overwhelm you with the fact that there are two of them, and then they will break out into a sick gymnastic routine all before shoving you around like you're a piece of paper and smashing your face into the ground like a seed ready to be planted. I love their visuals, I love their concept, and I think it would be a fun thing to have a more modern take in the 6th generation. Third then is Pokarodon. This is the lowest sort of challenge tier monster that I'll be talking about today, but I just love Pokarodon. It's basically just a big seal walrus hybrid. It has a move that essentially inspired one of Pteranodon's attacks in Rise, where he does like a seal clap and is loud enough to guaranteed stun any nearby hunters. It moves how you would expect it to move based on how I've described it. It makes funny noises, and it even has a move where it uses its face to create like a makeshift pitfall trap in the ground that you can actually fall in and get stuck, which is just way higher tier of a move than you would expect for something of its sort of challenge level. Not to mention that the inclusion of the Pokarodon would likely mean also the inclusion of the Bakara, the small monster version, which are just little fluffy seal dudes that sleep a lot, and they're just super cute, honestly. Moving on then to something a little bit beefier, Zenaserisu. This monster is aesthetically maybe just a touch over the top as far as the super evil looking color scheme and the over-spiked metallic nature of it, but generally speaking, it is a bat-like creature with these really cool whip-like wing extensions that it can use to beat you into submission. But unlike the other whip-wing wyverns that are in Frontier, because this is a running theme among monsters, there are a few of them, this one is a water element user, which is an incredibly rare element in the series, honestly, for how cool it can be, and so I just love that part of it in itself. But then it is also through its fight and the way that it creates water, it can cause essentially just rainbows all around the fight. It can cause geysers to pop up under your feet. It's really neat, and it's also just a really pretty fight as well, and I love the concept as a whole, and again, the idea of whip wings feels like something that could be significantly improved with the modern technology that will be behind Monster Hunter Wilds. Then up next is Pariah. I don't know how to pronounce this name! This monster drives a hard line through the middle, polarizing to the extreme. It looks like a relative of Plesioth, but functions much closer to a Tigrex, with a lot of charging attacks and boulder throws, but a big part of what makes this monster unique is that it vomits all over you. Wait, sorry, got that mixed up. It's the fact that it eats. The monster drools, and then you can put meat down in front of it while it is charging, which it will stop to eat, and if it eats enough, it'll enter a food coma sort of state, where it will just ignore you and waddle around because it's too full while you beat on it for free. And yes, again, it does vomit on you. That is an actual thing. I wasn't just joking. It applies the soil debuff, and honestly, it's just a perfect mix of silly and menacing at the same time that I would always love to see more of really in the series. Our 6th monster today is going to be Guanzorumu, the only proper Elder Dragon on this that I would want in the base game, really, and I could even see him being used as like the final title update monster of the base game in an almost Fatalis-like position from Iceborne, but for a base game. This monster is, for all intents and purposes, essentially a commander of other creatures. It is an Elder Dragon with a lot of power in its own right, a walking natural disaster capable of creating storms and destroying the ground under its own feet, but its main notable feature in combat is that it can full-on control a giant flock of winged drakes to fight alongside it. This feels extremely fitting with the concept of like the sheer amount of monsters that there were in the one wild trailer I've actually seen, the reveal trailer, like 6 large bears moving together and 20 or more of the pangolin looking herbivore dudes, just a hell of a lot of creatures all in the same area, and so it stands to reason that a Guanzorumu with even heftier control over a larger army of winged drakes than he had in Frontier could be given a lot of fun upgrades and interesting moveset interactions past his old just like having them pick you up and throw you off of the tower to instantly faint you shenanigans. 7th up then we have Akura Vishimu, and the main reason for this above all else is I love scorpions as a shape for a large monster in Monster Hunter. Generally speaking, in real life, the bigger the scorpion is, the less actual damage it'll do to you with its stings, but a giant scorpion is still a terrifying concept as a creature. It was one of those things that I imagined would be a fun addition long before before that I knew one already existed in Frontier, and I'm quite happy with the way that they did it too, adding a lot of further intrigue than a classic scorpion with the crazy crystal tail instead of just one that poisons, and it shoots out laser beams that drain all of your stamina if they hit you, and it also applies a unique crystal status which could either be reworked if it was brought into Wilds, or even just introduced as a status to the main series, in the same way that Narwa sort of brought the concept of magnetism into the game in her own way in Rise. Then next up we have Barlagul, and this is one of the few Frontier monsters with an English name translation, which actually happened due to the card game Teppen adding him in. This guy is basically just a Leviathan with a flail for a tongue. I love flails as a concept, and he whips it around and he can pin you with it to drink your blood to power himself up. He can even do that to other things in the environment, so he can apply like poison to himself, or even paralysis too that he can then apply with his attacks. He's a really interesting but still semi-believable monster that is definitely within the realm of possibility in a game like this, and I also love the way that he lights up just visually sometimes. I think that could be only better and better on a more modern game, not to mention the actual physics of his tongue. The physics of his tongue? That's it. A new phrase never uttered before by a human. Second to last, another lower tier monster, Gogomoa. This is a spider monkey based fanged beast that is quite a lot of fun to fight. He plays around a lot with hanging from the environment and fighting with you while doing so, and I feel like a modern game like Wild to just have a lot more fun, interesting context animations to go with this too. He also has like a little guy that hangs out on his back and helps out, and with the large packs of monsters that we already talked about earlier in the reveal trailer, I would love to see this advance to him having like a group of these little versions of himself, and maybe he can even like throw the babies at you like projectiles, like a baby machine gun, and then they attack when they hit you. Okay, maybe I've gone a bit too far, but I just love this monster so much, and I could really see a welcome spot for him in a modern Monster Hunter game, and in the main series as well. Then finally on this list, as a very personal choice honestly, is Poboru Barumu. This monster is essentially the living embodiment of a hunting horn fused with a whale. I also love whale-based monsters. It can buff itself and players with sounds it makes from its body. It can damage you with pure sound, not even needing to physically hit you, not to mention that it even has its own unique status that makes you dance because of the music. And while it looks funky at first, sure, it starts to make a lot more sense when you consider that every part of its body has evolved with the concept to produce a unique sound. Each limb, each part of him is essentially a different instrument in its one-man band. More than anything, I just love the concepts that work behind this monster. A whale that is just a bunch of instruments put together that can affect you with pure sound. It's just incredible, and I'd love to see a modern and main series representation of this, even if I think it could definitely use a bit more of a combat upgrade from its original version, and maybe a slightly less pointy aesthetic. That does it then, everyone. Just 10 monsters originally from Frontier that I would love to see make their way to Monster Hunter Wilds and be evolved to actually enter the modern era of Monster Hunter. I wouldn't expect more than 1 or 2 Frontier monsters would return in this game, but I do think that 1 or 2 is quite a possible number, if not likely given the sort of floodgate of Frontier opening with Espinas being put in Sunbreak. I hope you've all enjoyed this, and of course, let me know your own thoughts on any of these down below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.